I'm Fastidious.
I'm Arianwin.
And I am Espo.
And we're from Legend of the Innkeeper podcast. And you're casually listening to Concede.
I think you just misplayed.
Moving on.
Fun guaranteed.
That's what she just said.
Well,
Put
then,
it in there. Cut it out. Put it in
ready?
there.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Tell me when you're ready.
Let's go.
Fun guaranteed.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 76 of Concede, a Hearthstone podcast dedicated to making the competitive side of the game more accessible to you. Sitting in for Kenny while he coaches baseball over in the Control Center in Thunder Bluff, I am Cinder, and across the glass from me, representing Cyclone Esports, from Undercity, Georgia, it's Appa. Appa, how are you?
I'm doing real good.
Glad to hear it. And sideboarding in once again from Gadgets and New York, it's Ridiculous Hat. Ridiculous Hat, what's up?
I'm doing all right. I think really at this point I'm a meta adjustment more than a sideboard. I think that we figured out that this is maybe the configuration we want to be in until the meta rotates again, maybe when dinosaurs are sighted.
So are you Acidic Swamp Ooze or are you Harrison Jones?
I'm Kazan Mystic.
Ooh,
I like it.
That's
I like
super
it.
spicy.
Because I have secrets.
He does have secrets, but what we don't want to be a secret is your ladder play this week, Hat. How you been doing on ladder?
You know, Rogue is great, and turns out stealth is a really non-interactive mechanic, and it's really, really good. So I've been playing still Sensei Rogue. I've switched over to Waygoose. I think that's how I say it, Waygoose version. It has 2 Bloodsail Corsair, which is pretty good in a pirate meta, and still a 1-drop pirate. It has double Silent Knight, single Jungle Panther, Shaku, and double Shadow Sensei. It's been really, really good for me, along with Finja, the whole Finja 5 package. I'm at rank 2 right now, and I'm hoping to hit Legend within the next week or so.
Yeah, I played a similar deck a little bit, and that Silent Knight is like surprisingly good since he's stealth and Divine Shield, so they can't just like AoE him off the board while he's stealth. It's pretty good.
Yeah, and he's good against Dragon Priest in particular because they can't deal with 4 power dudes, and a lot of their dudes have 4 health. And so if you can usually kill 2 of their guys with no consequence, and they can't kill it with a removal spell. It's really, really strong in that matchup.
Sweet. And Appa, how you been doing in Hearthstone lately?
I've just been hanging out, continuing the really chill ladder climb. I'm at rank 9 right now. I've just been mostly completing quests that I missed while I was in Florida. I've been tinkering with the druid list, not a Jade druid list, but an old kind of token druid list. But instead of Power of the Wild, I play Mark of the Lotus, and it's actually been doing pretty well for me. I'm like bouncing between that and Jade druid just because I want my fill of druid, but I'm either gonna go super hard this weekend and hit Legend or do it next weekend. But within the next 2 weeks, I'm gonna hit Legend. I've decided that because I need to do that again. I haven't done it in like a couple months.
I am almost certainly not going to reach Legend because, time and things. But I last I left off last week, I think I was like at around, I had gotten to 12 and fallen down to 15. But I had this idea. I revisited the deck that I brewed right at the beginning of the new set. It was a Reno mid-range demon deck, and the idea being that aggressive mid-range pressure would actually give me time to use Reno as a bridge into a finisher like Cruel, because I really wanted to use Cruel, and there wasn't a really great archetype for it. Well, this deck got me from 15 to 8 in 2 days.
Wow.
And I was feeling the heat coming off of this deck. I stumbled with it a little bit, and then I spent today just kind of catching up on my quest to let the rank 10 floor catch me. So now my quest log is clear, so I'm jumping back on it, and we're gonna see how high we can get with it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, you sent me the list too, and you were like, "Hey, you should check this out and see if this is not a fluke."
Right? Is it?
Because it might just be really good. And then you sent it to me, and I was like, "Oh wait, I dusted Cruel because he saw literally no play, and I needed something else." And then I just threw in a Rag. It's actually really good. It's a pretty good deck.
Well, and you had the same conversation with me where you're like, "Is this a fluke?"
I needed more opinions.
Yeah. Well,
it's like, I'm dumpstering nerds. Am I supposed to be? Like,
I think the conversation was, I'm undefeated against Pirate Warrior. Don't ask me how that happened.
I'm also undefeated against Pirate Warrior with the deck because I Mortal Coiled my own Crystal Weaver at 1 health and top decked a Reno on turn 7.
Oh.
That dude was mad. I got a friend request.
That's disgusting.
Yeah, like, it's just because it can aggressively play the early game. It's got like 3/1 drops and a handful of 2 drops. The Warriors tend to play it as if it's a zoo deck, so they'll axe into it and do a little bit of trading to try to keep the board intact. But then you start dropping like the chunkier mid-range minions, and they can't address those, and they haven't accelerated enough damage. And then eventually Reno comes out, and boom. So I think it's more of a surprise factor thing than maybe a true meta thing, but it's as long as it's working.
The thing about it is it kind of follows the general rules of like a really good Hearthstone deck too. It's like it's not super linear and it has a bunch of play to it and it can change roles depending on what it's playing against. So I mean, all the pieces are there. It's just I think it's the fact that it's a Highlander deck could cause issues, but I mean. The games I play with it seems really sweet, and I'm sure Cruel's better than Rag, but Rag's still fun.
Yeah, I think it'll be it'll really get rounded. It would be really rounded out if it had a better 1 or 2 better 2 drops, but then at that point Reno is going away, so I may switch it to just like a regular mid-range demon after the rotation and see what happens, assuming I'm just not like buried in dinosaurs. But we are going to roll on through to the next section here. But before we do the news, we want to remind everybody that Concede is supported by you. That's right. You listening to the show right now, you are what keeps us alive and on the air, aside from us just loving doing it. If you'd like to find out how you can support us and receive some rewards in return, go to patreon.com/CoinConcede. And we're going to send out a big thank you to John Yu this week for his pledge. We're going to obviously get you some coaching this month along with the other patrons who are at the $10 level. But I got to mention this part. His pledge gets us very, very close to the goal that we set for ourselves that allows us to open up a merch store. And that's going to be awesome. I am already farming ideas, and I've got some t-shirt designs going. So get us a couple more bucks on the Patreon, guys, and we're going to open the merch store, and it's going to be amazing. So head to patreon.com/CoinConcede if you want that. And for now, let's kick it on over to Hat this week for the news.
All right. Well, we're just before Ungoro. So not even a creature was stirring, not even a dinosaur. There's going to be quite a bit coming up this week. The biggest news is that on Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific, we have a card reveal stream. Now, normally these are with Frodan and Ben Brodan, but no Brodan this time. It's going to be Peter Whalen and Day 9. So expect a lot of high-pitched laughter that is very contagious. This is coming Friday at 11 Pacific, 2 o'clock Eastern. And this should be... They'll probably post all the cards to the Facebook group after the stream, even if they don't show them all. Typically, their behavior has been shortly before the release of the set. They do these streams. They play pre-built decks against Ixar, where they have a bunch of different decks with different themes from the set. They'll reveal those to us. And then any cards they don't get to that were in the decks, they'll post. And a lot of times they will post the entire set to the Facebook group afterwards. It should be quite a few cards that make their way out there in the wild, and that'll be on Friday. You'll see our review stream of those the following week, and Appa, Kenny, and Cinder are going to be taking a social media hiatus, or at least as much as they can, to avoid connecting with these cards so we can have a live review stream next week, and it'll be really exciting to see some reactions live. I don't know how you guys are going to stay off Twitter for 5 days, but...
I will find a way.
Yeah.
I'm not so much sad about staying off Twitter. I'm sad that I can't watch this until next week because Day9's one of my favorite people on the internet. I think he should be king of the internet. So like I don't want to have to wait to watch this, but I'm gonna have to because that live review stream is gonna be fun. If my reaction to Volcano, whatever the card is, was any indication.
Yeah.
And that was just the tip of the volcano.
Stop it. Stop it. You're going to be fired so quickly, you're not even going to know what happened.
It's fired in a volcano?
Yes, right out of the volcano.
I don't think the term is fired because he's Kazan Mystic. He's going to be rotated.
Fair
enough.
I can accept that. So, speaking of things that Appa likes, let's talk about the new Tavern Brawl.
Oh, man.
So, the new Tavern Brawl is Encounter at the Crossroads, which we've had before, where it's a random deck from a class of your choosing, but with a twist. You will get a 3/5 on turn 3, and even if you have Taunt, it still goes face.
And it also has Taunt.
Yes, it has Taunt.
For some reason.
It's a very strange situation, where you have all these minions with Taunt against other minions with Taunt, and they go face anyway. So, it's, I haven't actually played it yet. It sounds interesting, but...
I envy you.
So, Appa, why don't you tell us what you feel?
I hate this Tavern Brawl a lot. So, I said I was going to tone it down for the podcast, but I feel it. It's building up right now, man.
No.
Okay, so...
Give us the highlights.
I played about 3 games of Tavern Brawl before I could scrape out my pack, and I had a total of negative 1,000 fun. It was awful. There, you have no control over what happens at all. It's completely random. Your deck's the only control, anything that you have control over is your class. You pick a class and you get random cards, and it's just like, oh, here's a 3-mana 3/5 with Taunt that just hits the face, and you get another one every turn. It keeps happening until somebody dies. There's like hardly any interaction at all. Not only that, whenever you slug through this complete mess of a Tavern Brawl, you only get an Ungoro pack, which you don't get until mid-April with an asterisk because they haven't given us the release date yet. So it's just so much not fun. And then to add on to that, Heroic Tavern Brawl was last week. So for the casual players that didn't play Tavern Brawl or the people that opted out of it because of whatever reason, they don't get the makeup, here, you get your pack this week. You have to wait until the next week. So you get 2 weeks without a pack. So it's just a whole bunch of what are you doing, Blizzard? It's making a lot of people upset, and I'm one of them.
I didn't hate the brawl, really. I didn't think it was like a ton of fun or anything, but I played it and I got my pack. But like, I do agree that the timing was a little weird. Like, couldn't you have done this like the week before Ungoro? You know, and maybe just done regular packs this week. I don't know.
That's honestly my major issue with it. All the other stuff is kind of like forgivable because it's Tavern Brawl and it's going to be a bunch of random silly nonsense. But it's the fact that like Ungoro is a month plus or minus away. We have no idea. It's in the middle of April, sometime. Right.
Yeah.
And the Heroic Brawl was last week, and people look forward to doing a couple silly whatever for the Tavern Brawl stipulations, and they get a pack, and then they move on. They're like, ooh, that was my pack for the week. It was free. It was awesome. I love Blizzard. Yay, Hearthstone's fun. But, like, Heroic Brawl was last week, and a lot of people didn't, like, participate in it. You weren't able to get your free pack, me included, and then this week, you don't get one either. It's like, just put it next week. It makes more sense that way. It's closer to the release date. Oh my god.
So I have thoughts, as is known to happen. I don't know if they're going to give out any more classic packs before the Hall of Fame rotation. I
That's
wonder if they're only going to give it Ungoro packs from right now, and we'll see next week. If next week they give it a Classic pack, I 100% agree with both of you that it was silly to do Ungoro now, Classic later. The only other reason I can think of is that the reveal stream is this Friday. You build hype for it this Wednesday. And we didn't know that earlier today. So you may have played the Tavern Brawl and said, why am I getting a set that's not released yet? This is stupid. But it might be to build hype. I do think that if you release a Classic pack and a new player opens an Azure Drake or a Ragnaros, and they have it for 3 weeks and then it gets taken away from them, even though they get the dust, that'll be a weird feeling. The brawl itself, the random brawls, they happen. It's about as far as you can get away from the heroic brawl, except for Randomonium, and I'm really glad they didn't do that. But this is still a really strange twist in the brawl. I agree it feels kind of odd. But I think the Ungoro part is to build excitement for the daily login rewards, to relate to the reveal stream this Friday, and because I worry that giving out Hall of Fame cards inadvertently by giving out Classic packs to players right now that are playing the brawl, the casual demographic, giving them a shiny toy and then snatching it out of their fingers is a weird feeling. Even if you give them the dust, they're not going to understand that. They're going to go to put their rag in their deck, and they're not going to be able to do that.
But, like, kind of on that same point, if that's an issue with the Classic packs, and you're kind of giving them a toy and then taking it away in, like, a month or whatever, what they're doing right now is they're giving a 3-year-old a big Christmas present in the wrapping and said, you can't open it until Christmas. And it's August right now. And you're a kid just staring at that. And it feels real bad. But you know you got something, so you can't complain that much. But you're like, man, this sucks. And you'd rather just have a toy or something. Like, why can't they give us a Mean Streets of Gadgetzan pack or something? I want my toy, and I want it now.
This metaphor tells me a lot about Appa's childhood.
What? And also, are you calling Hearthstone players 3-year-olds?
I was calling myself a 3-year-old.
Oh, that's fair.
But it's not August, it's Thanksgiving. It's Thanksgiving. The holidays will be here before you know it. You can buy eggnog in the meantime. You'll be fine.
So, Hat, tell us about something not as divisive. Okay.
Well, unfortunately, you asked for something not controversial. This might not be controversial on this show because we all live in America, but overseas, the Hearthstone prices for European currencies have been adjusted because the exchange rates are very different in the EU than they were before. The pound has been adjusted. The euro has been adjusted. I think there was one more that was adjusted. There was actually quite a bit of European backlash about this on Twitter and on various forums about raising the price of packs during a time when the game is going through, it depends who you ask, various healthy or unhealthy states. It is right after a nerf and right before a set release, and they are changing the exchange rate, or the price of packs due to the exchange rate. Blizzard has said they're losing millions of dollars due to the exchange rate. I believe that. The timing wasn't ideal. It's understandable, but it's very easy for those of us here who are continuing to pay the same price for packs to be like, oh yeah, that's totally reasonable. So if you're a European viewer and you have opinions on this, tweet at us, shoot us an email, let us know what you think. Because we have no perspective on this, but there was a fair amount of internet outcry.
If I was an EU player who, like, dropped money on packs, I'd probably just be like, man, this sucks. Blizzard on that money grab crap right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was the same week as Heroic Brawl, right? So it just feels like Blizzard is trying to drain every bank account you have. But they do have reasoning for it, just a question of how justified that reasoning is. And I can't speak to that.
I mean, at least they were transparent about it, you know. Yeah. They said, hey, we did kind of have a major economic shift let's see, 3 months ago here, so
yeah,
it's understandable.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, a few things that we don't talk about on this show. So, tell us about what's happening in the pro scene.
So, pro scene. So, Counter Logic Gaming, it's only had a Hearthstone team for 2 months. It had some good players.
Yep.
Zixo, Hoy, and Surrender, all formerly of Natus Vincere, the Navi team, who were also on that team with, who was the fourth one? Oskaka. Former world champion. So after just 2 months, that team has dissolved. So that's pretty crazy. And then Solo Mid is further increasing its investment in competitive Hearthstone and is snagging Sidonia away from the escape. Sidonia, friend of the show, really great player. That's a big pickup for solo mid. What do you all think about this?
Like, the counter logic thing doesn't surprise me. I mean, all three of those players have been very much like not making big waves in competitive scenes. Hoy and Surrender are notoriously quiet as personalities, and Zixo is, shall we say, controversial a lot of the time. So, like, he was not a great public face for Counter Logic, given that there were no like good guys on that team to balance him out. So I'm not surprised that combined with no results ends up, being one of the factors. It could have just been money, but I mean, they weren't making great stream numbers or in tournament results, so not surprised. Now, on the other hand, Team Solo Mid, now it's people may not realize, but Trump and Kriparian have been long time representatives of Team Solo Mid in the Hearthstone scene, but of course, they have been predominantly streamers. Just, late last year, Trump started getting into the competitive scene and has actually been
Crip and Trump were both on TSM, but they say TSM Crip, TSM Trump, and you're right. They're primarily content producers, though Trump is a great player, but he's not. Yeah. He's not a tournament shark, and Sidonia absolutely is. He is quite a tournament player. Top 8 at HCT last time around, if I recall correctly, and we're going to talk about him in a minute.
Yep. That's true.
That's a great pickup.
Appa, got any thoughts on it?
I'd really be interested to kind of look behind the curtain at all of these teams that are picking up players and then kind of disbanding the Hearthstone team, because I want to see how their infrastructure is set up. Because my guess is that they're salarying these players, sort of, and it's kind of detrimental moving forward. It's kind of setting up a recipe for disaster, because Hearthstone's not really a game where you can like salary a player and expect to get your money back off of them. Kind of has to be a commission-based system. Like, that's how I'm set up with Cyclone, is that they hook me up with tournaments and travel and stuff, and then we just split prize and whatever percentage the contract is labeled in. And then, so like, my educated guess would be that these really big organizations are like picking up these players at salary range like they would other esports, because that makes sense. But Hearthstone's not a big like cash, or doesn't have a huge prize pool in tournaments. So like, I guess that's the reason why we're seeing a lot of this.
Yeah, Hearthstone, most of the money's in content creation, right? So any of these tournament players that don't stream, that don't make content, that don't appear anywhere, you're not going to have consistent revenue. And Archon, when it existed, was primarily based around that sort of content creation, and we've got a few other ones. Complexity is really, really big on the content creators, and that seems to be how these teams likely subsist, and also how these players subsist, because I can think of very few teams that are straight-up gaming-only organizations with no content producers that do well and stick together.
True facts. So, I'm going to actually hand it off to myself, since Kenny's not here, and we're going to talk about some tournament results. It's the Grand Tournament! Well, thank you, Cinder. You're welcome, Cinder. So, at PAX East up in Boston this past weekend, we had One Nation of Gamers once again bringing us a major tournament for the Hearthstone Championship Tour. This was a best-of-5 double elimination conquest event. So we're just going to bring you the last few matches from this event just to keep things moving along. The upper bracket quarterfinals, Sidonia beats Yoet's Flow 3-1. Ray C sweeps George C 3-0. Killin' All Day defeats the reigning winter champion for the Americas, Dr. Jicky Ninky 3-2. And Muzzy defeats newcomer Bell 3-1. That sets us up with some semifinal matches in the upper bracket. Sidonia versus Ray C. This is a sad match because both of these guys are friends of the show. We don't want to see either of them lose, but somebody has to. Ray C opens up with the Reno Lock versus Sidonia's Rampy Jade Druid. Reno Lock develops bigger minions faster and overruns the Druid to take game 1. Game 2, Sidonia switches decks to bring up the Dragon Priest Mirror. Ray C doesn't challenge Sidonia's first whelp and ends up playing from behind all game. Sidonia snowballs and equalizes the series. Game 3, Ray C sticks with Priest and Sidonia re-queues Jade Druid. No early play for Sidonia lets Ray C play on curve, but a great devolve flips the advantage to Sidonia. He gets Ray C down to 2 health, but Ray C just barely stabilizes behind taunts and builds up enough counter pressure to value trade the board and snowball a win. Ray C puts his Jade Shaman on match point against Jade Druid. Sidonia gets early minion advantage from some ramping, but Hex plus Maelstrom Portal clears the board, and here come the golems on the march. 6/6s, 7/7s, and 8/8s roll out, and Druid cannot hold back the pressure. Ray C advances 3-1 over Sidonia. In the other semifinal match, Muzzy versus Killin' All Day. Killin' All Day you may not have heard his name before, but he is a regular of the tournament scene. He plays a lot of cups, and he quietly ladders and gets lots of HCT points. So not surprised to see him, his name this high up in a major event. Muzzy starts with the Dragon Priest against Killin's Water Rogue. Rogue opens as it typically does, but Dragon Priest presents far too much minion value for Rogue to challenge, and Muzzy picks up an easy first win. Killin switches to Jade Druid, and Muzzy cues Questing Rogue. Druid has absolutely no opening, and Muzzy's Rogue easily sets up tremendous mid-game pressure. No recovery for Druid meat gives Muzzy the 2-0 lead. Muzzy goes into match point on Jade Shaman while Killin tries again with the Rogue, but another weak start lets Muzzy control the tempo of the game, builds up enough of a board to finish on Bloodlust and sweep the series 3-0. That brings us an upper bracket final of Ray C versus Muzzy. Muzzy, of course, the very talented ladder player representing Luminosity. He was in the last call event last year. His name has been seen many times in the HCT, but a big tournament win has thus far eluded Muzzy. But he's in the final at Onog, so at PAX East. So here he goes. He opens with the Questing Rogue against Ray C's Dragon Priest. Rogue has a trademark awkward Rogue hand TM. Ray C is allowed to build up enough pressure, but with just 11 life, Muzzy gets 2 massive Auctioneer turns and nearly delivers 30 damage over 2 turns. But as the rope burns down, the second Auctioneer turn, Muzzy backstabs his own Drake, fails to conceal a 16-16 Van Cleef. That allows Ray C enough time to Shadow Word Death and Holy Nova to clear up the board and set up lethal. Huge misplay by Muzzy on that sequence. Muzzy stays on the Questing Rogue, and Ray C queues up Reno Lock for game 2. Muzzy has a full hand of spells plus double questing, so he waits for the conceal and then commits his full hand to developing both. But Ray C is waiting on the other side with Twisting Nether, and Ray C easily closes after that big board clear. Ray C calls up Jade Shaman to close the match while Muzzy just sticks doggedly with the Rogue. Yet another awkward Rogue hand gives Ray C all the time in the world to develop, and he sweeps the Rogue 3-0. But we're not done. Remember, this is double elimination, and neither Muzzy nor Ray C had lost a game yet, so this could end up being a best-of-3 match series. So a best-of-3, best-of-5s. It could be a very long night for the casters, depending on how this plays out. But before you get there, we had to do the lower bracket because Muzzy gets sent down to the lower bracket to try and earn his way back up. Sidonia came down and eliminated Eloise. Yoa's Flow delivers Killin' All Day's second consecutive loss and knocks him out. Yoa's Flow then plays to decide who meets Muzzy for the lower bracket final, and Yoa's Flow sweeps Sidonia, but Muzzy then sweeps Yoa's Flow in return, and Muzzy returns to the final game to play Ray C again. So now we are at the final Ray C versus Muzzy rematch. Muzzy must defeat Ray C twice if he wants to win the tournament, because this is double elimination. Muzzy once again returns to Questing Rogue, and Ray C opens with the Reno Lock. Muzzy has an assertive mid game that bridges him into a powerful auctioneer turn, and a defensive Reno is not enough to hold back the rogue pressure. Game 2, Ray C sticks with Reno, and Muzzy queues up mid-range Shaman. Reno Lock has all the answers to Muzzy's development, and Muzzy gasses out first, leading to Ray C, Reno Lock win. Series now tied 1 each. Game 3 is a Dragon Priest mirror. God save me from Dragon Priest mirrors. This was the longest match of the series by far. Muzzy develops first and snowballs, but Racy's very slowly reverses the board advantage. Muzzy picks up Malygos and Nefarian off of a Brand Historian play, but a top deck Holy Nova gives Racy just enough damage to edge out the win before Muzzy can capitalize on that value. Game 4, Muzzy sticks to the Priest, and Racy reaches for Jade Shaman. Racy's opening is good, but Muzzy's Priest simply outvalues it to tie the series and bring it to Game 5. It's mid-range Shaman versus Jade Shaman. They open nearly identically, but Muzzy's mid-range pickups are slim, while Racy gets all of the Jade cards and quickly snowballs to a victory. Racy wins Onog PAX East and earns his very first major title. In fact, just a couple of months after being picked up by Panda Logic Gaming. So this is a huge, huge win for Racy. Appa Hat, what do you guys think?
I think Racy's a really good dude, and I'm super glad he won. I think that you talking this much makes me thirsty.
It makes me thirsty, too.
But yeah, Racy is an incredible guy. He's actually in the Hearth League that I play in, Team Hearth League, and he's been, I mean, obviously he's a rock star. He's Racy. And at the same time, could not find a nicer guy. Very, very, very friendly, and really just seems to have a good love of the game and a good love of dank memes, which I appreciate. So I'm really glad to see him win, and this is in pretty decisive fashion against Muzzy of all people, who is pretty typically one of the first people to finish the ladder race. I think a couple seasons ago, he was the winner of the rat race, the one that the rat puts on, where to see who the first player is to hit legend. And Muzzy hit it in 27 hours.
Yikes!
So that's the final boss. So Racy to not even make it go to a second match in the final, just the first time, just finish it. Very impressive and very decisive behavior, decisive win.
Absolutely, and personal note too. Racy went through like some major surgery last year, and his doctor forbid him to travel, and he was unable to compete in the HCT circuit towards the end of the year. And I can imagine that must have been really upsetting for him. But he has stuck with it, and he has persevered, and here he is, like his name at the top of the mountain at a major HCT event at the beginning of this year. So that's awesome for him. Appa, anything to add?
It seems like Muzzy's always the bridesmaid.
Yeah.
I feel like Muzzy is the Chalky of 2017.
Yeah, he's like always
and
expected to just like spike a tournament, and then he goes in there and he like either does super mediocre or he like hits the finals and loses.
Yeah, like that. It's just such a huge misplay on that auctioneer sequence. They must have been exhausted at that point. But, you can never honestly overstate like how much pressure you're under in those kind of matches, because it's a lot. It's hard to like even count your mana crystals. Sometimes you're just like, where am I? What is it? Oh, it's turn 8. What happened to the first 7 turns? What am I doing? I mean, I can see the backstab just getting in deeper because he was planning on dropping Van Cleef, but to play Van Cleef at 16-16 after the conceal as opposed to 14-14 and then the conceal, that by itself was just, whew.
Yeah, I'm sure it was just
nerves.
Sequencing mistake caused by fatigue or nerves or whatever.
Yeah,
right on.
And we're talking about Miracle Rogue, which is already one of the hardest decks in the game to play, period. We're talking about 2 turns that were full 75 seconds straight up think and click. And we're talking about he's playing against Racy. So this is a situation where I don't think there is a single person that wouldn't feel some kind of pressure there. So no disrespect for Muzzy here. It was definitely a rough turn, but I would be surprised if anyone played that situation perfectly.
Oh no, I totally agree. I mean Muzzy is not like he played badly the whole tournament. He played amazingly well, but it was just such an interesting point in that series to watch, because it's like, we talked about it. Like, Muzzy is always kind of coming in second place, and he needs that kind of stuff needs to not happen if he wants to take a title at some point.
Yeah, while it's understandable, it's a blemish on like an otherwise really well played tournament.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well said.
You can make 100 perfect plays, but the one that kills you is the one that everybody remembers.
Yeah.
So, if you're watching tournaments, remember this weekend is the ESL Trinity Series playoffs. The top 4 teams are playing off to decide who is the best of the best. So definitely check that out. And then the weekend after that, HCT Winter Championships. Looking super, super forward to that. Appa, go ahead and read us the iTunes review before we jump into the next segment.
Okay. Well, this comes from. Is that the name you picked?
The bestest ever.
The bestest ever. From the United States. It says, "Come for Hearthstone, stay for the Korra." Love this podcast so much. Wish the host would explain the whole from Orgrimmar. It's kind of shtick we have going on at the beginning. He's saying, "Why aren't there any people from Silvermoon?" I love this show except for the one awful math episode.
That's my fault. I take full responsibility.
Appa is a great addition. Korra needs to be on more often. Kenny is chill. Cinder is cool too. Keep the questions coming. P.S. My review better be read on air or I will be sad.
Well, now you're not sad. So there is an origin to the From Orgrimmar from Thunderbluff. So back way at the beginning of my tenure on the show, I am a slightly paranoid of the internet, and I did not want to give away my actual location. I am from Louisiana, but I decided to say I am from Thunder Bluff, Louisiana, to make it flavorful and because I love Tauren. So I did that, and Andres started the same day, and Andres said, "Ooh, that's pretty cool. I want to be from Undercity." And so we wrote him in as from Undercity, and then Cora's like, "That's pretty cool. I want to be from Orgrimmar." So she's from Orgrimmar. And even though he does not say it, Kenny is from Silvermoon, California. So we do have a Silvermoon. He just never says it because he's ashamed of who he is.
Or because he's anchoring.
And then Hats from Gadgetan.
Yeah.
And Hats from Gadgetan.
Because New York City and Gadgetan have a lot in common.
They really do.
I like how I kind of just got grandma'd into Undercity. I didn't get a choice in the matter.
I thought you had a choice, and you were just like, it's fine.
That sounds really plausible, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't remember it completely. That's totally possible that it happened. I was just like, whatever, and now I'm complaining about it.
It's fine.
Yeah,
it's fine.
But as long as you're over there in Undercity holding things down, I'm gonna play your bumper for you. Class is in session. Appa, tell us about Jade Druid.
So, welcome to class, everyone. I will be your professor. We're gonna go over Jade Druid because it's kind of the current boogeyman of the format, and by that I mean it's the linchpin that kind of holds everything together. It's the solid go-to deck. It's not too strong. It's not too weak. You see it in almost every lineup because it has such like medium matchups across the board and such strong potential. So we're gonna be covering that. And what Jade Druid is it is a druid. I guess it's kind of a ramp deck. It's like a druid ramp mid-range hybrid thing that plays 22 core cards. It has all of the Jade cards. You jam all of those in that you could possibly play, Bran included, because it's an honorary Jade card in the deck. And then you play Innervates, Wild Growth, Wrath, Swipe, Drake, Nourish, Fandral, Staghelm. Then after that, you have 8 slots to work with. Then you get to kind of tinker your deck to whatever meta you're facing. And the usual suspects that we see are Acidic Swamp Ooze, Living Roots, Doomsayer, Second Rate Bruiser, Feral Rage, Mulch, and Ancient of War. Those are usually kind of teched against aggro, which are your worst matchups, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then the control tech / good card in the deck that you sometimes see is Gadgetzan Auctioneer, because sometimes you get Fandral on the field and it sticks, and you play Gadgetzan, and then you just pop off the next turn. and there's nothing they can do about it, while also being really, really good against control. So the reason you play Jade Druid is because its matchups aren't like super bad against the popular decks, but they're also not like, well, I guess they are pretty polarized in terms of good matchups. But it's unfavored matchups. There's none that are less than 40% in against you. So there's none that are 60% plus in the other deck's favor, aside from Zoo. But that doesn't see play that much right now. But it's good matchups. The matchups that it wants to play against are Reno control decks like Mage, Priest, and Warlock, which is why we're not seeing too many of them in tournaments. There's Control Warrior, which is pretty dead right now. You can't really play it. Hunter, which is non-existent. Freeze Mage. It's pretty good against Freeze Mage because Druid gives Freeze Mage just a problem fundamentally because of its hero power, because it attacks them and it also gives them 1 armor, so it's kind of in between Hunter and Warrior in that way. And also, most decks run 2 Feral Rages, and like 1 Feral Rage from Druid is real hard to beat, honestly. I played a lot of Feral Rage versus Jade Druid, unless you like assemble the OTK while not dying, which is super hard to do. It gets a little bit difficult to win that matchup. And then it's also good against the Paladin decks because they can equality clear you like once or twice, but like even then you just refill the board with like 6 6s and 7 7s. And like the only way you survive is by shrinking them with Humility and Elder Peacekeeper. And at that point they're like nourishing and drawing more Jade stuff. You're like, man, I'm just dead. So those are all Jade Druid's super good matchups, and its unfavored matchups, which are between 40% and 50%, are Tempo Mage, Dragon Priest, the Rogue decks being Miracle and Aggro Rogue, Water Rogue included, Aggro Shaman and Jade Shaman, and the aggressive warrior variants like Pirate Warrior, Dragon Warrior, and Water Warrior. But the thing about Jade Druid is it's still a Druid deck. It still runs Wild Growth and Innervate, so sometimes you just get to steal wins that you have no business winning because you just have disgusting Innervate starts where you're just like, oh, turn 3 Age to 4, go. You can't do anything. Get wrecked. And then sometimes you don't do anything and then they run over you. So that's kind of the draw to playing Druid in general. And then your awful matchup is Zoo, which is like 35%, like 30 to 35%. It's real hard for you to win, but hardly anybody plays Zoo, so it's not too worrisome.
Yeah, it's not too bad. So let me ask you about mulligans here, because mulligans are super important. So if you're playing Jade Druid on ladder, let's do the most popular deck on the ladder right now, Pirate Warrior. If I see a warrior, what should I be mulliganing for?
Depending on how your deck is built, I'm just gonna go off how my deck's built right now, like in the client, because it's pretty middle of the road. It's pretty standard. It runs double Living Roots, it runs double Feral Rage, it runs a Mulch, 2 Ancient of Wars as the tech cards. You're looking for removal spells. You're looking for Living Roots to contest the early board, Wild Growth. You're not looking for Swipe because it's slow. Like, you want to draw into it, but you don't want it in your opening because you want to aggressively mulligan for the cards that cost 3 or less. So Wild Growth, Wrath, Living Roots, Feral Rage, Bran even. You can just run out of Bran on 3 because they'll either have to deal with it and it'll save you at least 4 damage, or it'll live and then you can start swinging the board in your favor. So basically cards that are 3 or less you want to save, or you're looking to aggressively mulligan towards.
And then on the flip side, with the Reno decks, let's say we queue against a Warlock and assume that it's a Reno Warlock. What do we mulligan there?
You want your early ramp cards to cheat you into the late game faster and gain an edge on tempo and then refilling with Nourish. So you're looking for Living Roots is still pretty good here. It's like it's weird against the Reno decks. Especially Warlock, because if you play Living Roots, they have a really good answer on their turn 1 in Moral Coil, but like that's still fine because they're trading a half a card for half of your card, but you're still giving them the option to play Mortal Coil, which would be a dead card otherwise. It also kind of gets eaten by Mistress of Mixtures, but I still think the Living Roots is fine there because you force them to react and have an answer, or else it's going to start chipping away at them. And then you want Wild Growth, and what's the Jade card? The Jade Wild Growth.
Jade Blossom.
Jade Blossom.
You want Jade Blossoms. And then you're looking to just bridge your early ramp into your mid game and just start developing giant Jade stuff. And the trick to these matchups is you can lose them very easily if you play it recklessly. You want to present enough pressure on the board that they have to deal with it, and then save the rest of the cards in your hand, because they're going to AoE the board down, they're going to use a bunch of resources, get rid of your dudes. And then this is usually why Bran is so good in this deck, because against the mid-range and control decks, after they deal with your board, they've usually traded off everything that they have, or used a big AoE spell from their hand, like Twisting Nether or something, and then you go like, Bran, Jade Spirit, and you just have an enormous board again that they have to deal with, and they're like, oh, that's 2 cards, that's reasonable. You got like 15 power. Okay. And you, against the slower control decks, you want to save Jade Idol's the 1 mana card, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Card names get hard for me sometimes because I remember them by their pictures.
That's why we're here.
So Jade Idol, this is one of the most like commonly misplayed cards with the deck, is Jade Idol. Usually against control, you just don't want to run it out on 1. You want to save it to be able to like shuffle it into your deck and get an advantage off that. If you're running Auctioneer, you definitely want to save it against control. And if you're not running Auctioneer, you want to save it to be able to pair with like, say on like turn 6 or something, or like later down the road, you go shuffle 3 into your deck and then you nourish and draw 3. Because then you're going to draw some giant Jade monsters that cost 1 mana. But against the more aggressive or more mid-rangey matchups like Dragon Priest, because you want to get on the board as fast as possible, you just want to make that token. You just want to make the token, be like, all right, it's here, it's awkward, it's going to start either hitting you or killing some stuff. Then they have to deal with it.
Yeah, because I noticed that, like, if you don't get your Jade ramping started from turn 1, then, like, the Jade Spirit is really super weak on 4. Because then it's like a 2/3 and a 1/1 for 4 mana. That's bad. Like, you want to get at least a 2/2 or a 3/3 out of it to, like, really start pushing your advantage on the board.
If you get a 2/2, it's not great, but it's kind of on par in terms of power and toughness per mana spent. You get the quote-unquote like Yeti distributed across 2 bodies, which is not a Yeti, but like you know what I'm getting at.
Right.
But in those kind of matchups, you just want to start developing as fast as possible, because your mana is probably going to be super tight, like with the deck, because you want to go like 1 into 2 into 4 into 5 into 6. Like that's like the ideal curve, and you want to have played that Jade Idol to either trade into stuff or start causing problems for them, and also make your upcoming Jade turns better, because you might be stuck with it in your hand just doing nothing, and you'd be like, man, this would have been way better to give +1/+1 to all of my upcoming Jade stuff.
And I notice in your mulligans you didn't mention Innervate at all. When do we keep
that
this
one
card?
all the time?
Okay.
Keep it. It's too good.
Do you keep double Innervate?
It depends. I will keep Innervate every single time. I will keep at least a copy. If my hand is like Innervate, Wild Growth, Innervate, I'll mulligan and Innervate.
Because you want to have at least something to do, right?
Yeah. Like, other than that, if I have some sort of action that I can dump my Innervate into and cheat the mana curve, I'll keep the Innervates. Like, I'll say I'm going first and I have Innervate Drake, I'll just keep that. I'll just play Drake on 1. Then I'll Hero Power on turn 2 because I'll have a 4/4 that drew me a card.
Yeah, seems fine.
Yeah, I just kind of forgot about Innervate. But yeah, you usually want to keep that. It's you want to look at the contents of your hand and be like, can I actually do anything with the second Innervate if I have it? And if the answer is no, you probably want to mulligan it.
Okay, that's fair. What do you find yourself losing to, not in, as far as decks, but as far as board states? When do you, as the Druid player, feel like it really gets out of your control? What do you face down that you say, this is how I lose?
Draconid Operative.
Yeah.
Oh man,
That guy's
Because
good.
it's way more efficient than any card that I can play. Like pre-turn 8 or something. It's just like, because you're gonna curve like a 3/6 into it, and like the 3/6 just like eats your Jade Spear, and you're like, okay, whatever, it's 3/6, I can deal with it. Probably it's like 2 health at this point. And they're like, Secret Agent coming through, and you're like, oh god, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a 5/6. It's gonna start hitting me real hard.
I am so sick of that card. That card kills every time I see it. It kills me.
The initials shortened to Dr. OP.
It's like it's Draconid Operative is a huge problem, and then Frothing Berserking can be a real issue too, because against the aggressive warrior decks, you want to deal with kind of everything. Say they go 1-drop like South Sea Deckhand, and then you like play Living Roots, then you like trade into some stuff after they've hit you, and then they go 2-drop whatever it is. Then they go Frothing Berserk, and you're like, man, I have so much stuff I have to deal with. And if you don't have exactly Feral Rage on 3 to answer it, it's going to do a lot of damage to you. Because if you don't have Feral Rage on 3, you better have Coin Swipe, because if you don't, you're probably just dead.
Yeah. That makes sense. In my travels playing against Jade Druid, I'm not a great Druid player, but in my travels against Jade Druid, Finge has been really effective.
Yeah, Finge is good too.
Feral Spirits has been really effective. Basically, anything that lets you go wide with stuff that doesn't die to swipe. That's why I think Zoo is such a good matchup, or it's so good for Zoo and so bad for Druid, is because they go wide with a bunch of unswipeable things. And Fincher does a lot of similar stuff. As soon as you hit with that guy, all of a sudden the board is full, like you just said, of things you really need to deal with, and you have so many bad options.
And the way that Jade Druid kind of wins games most of the time is you both throw resources at each other, and you just get incidental value off of your cards because they just produce tokens that get larger, and your opponent's expending cards from his hand. Probably 2-for-1ing themselves a lot of the time. And Finja just lets you gain card advantage while keeping resources in your hand and making your next draws better. So, like, that's also something to factor in why Finja's a super big problem against Jade Druid. I actually played against my first Finja deck with Jade Druid because I haven't played Jade Druid since it came out. And I picked it up again the other day. And I played against a Finja, and he was like, eat your Living Roots token. And I was like, oh, man. Yeah, that's a lot.
Because in addition to card advantage, you also gain mana, and you also get hit in the face.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, here's a 4/2 and a 3/3, and they're coming in.
Yep.
So, Hat, any last thoughts on Jade Druid?
I think, ultimately, in terms of Druid, when I've had the most success with it, when I had success with Druid, you just dealt people 14 damage on turn 9, and that was actually pretty good. But what I found that I've always been most successful in Druid when I plan out my mana about 3 turns in advance. When I float mana, I lose. When I use my mana efficiently, I win. And a lot of times, if I have the option of innervating out a Druid or a Nourish, or a Drake and a Nourish, it's almost always the Drake. Generally, just developing a little bit early, getting the card advantage later, and using your mana efficiently is what I found to be successful. I'm not a great Druid player, but again, back when you could do things like hit people for 14 on turn 9, that was how I won, and just use all your mana every turn and then they die.
Yeah, to kind of piggyback off of that, one of the things that I had problem with coming from Magic was, in Magic, like, card advantage is king, right?
Yeah.
It's like, the best thing you can do is, like, have more cards than your opponent. But that's also because you can interact on their turn, whatever. So I would Nourish, like, before I Azure Draked, but one of the key, like, teachings of Hearthstone that I've learned over my time playing is front load your tempo before you use card advantage. You want to be on the board before you start digging for cards. We can use Zoo as an example. Like, on turn 2, you can either life tap or play a Knife Juggler. You're going to play Knife Juggler, and then you're going to tap the next turn or whatever. Because it's just better because you're on the board and you have something that they have to deal with.
Right. And it's like you you might think, if I play something small and my opponent just removes it, well, I've lost that. But you didn't. You really didn't lose anything there, because they had to trade a card to get rid of your card, and then they gave you initiative back on the next turn. So being proactive, super important.
Yeah, and initiative is key.
Yeah,
Initiative's real
totally
good.
is.
We talked about that a little bit in the terms episode last week, and I would, if we're getting a little inside baseball here, I would recommend going back and listening to that episode. But one of the key teachings, and I know we're going a little long, Cinder, but bear with me.
That's okay.
One of the key teachings that I would say really helped me get better as a player was a passing comment that Zalay made on his stream, is that he was playing a deck at the time called Giant Dragons. The deck isn't important, but it was awesome. I just want to say Giant Dragons. And he said the point of the deck is to get them to trade into your stuff, so you don't have to trade into their stuff. You can just go face, because that's where you want to be in Hearthstone. If you were the one dictating your opponent's trades, if you were saying, I'm going to put pressure, if you don't deal with it, you die, and I don't have to deal with your stuff because I'll kill you, that's almost always, especially now, that's what Jade Druid wants to be, that's where Dragon Priest wants to be, that's where Zoo wants to be. If you are able to put yourself in the position of dictating trades, and that's a lot of times how deck like Reno Lock and Control Warrior will win, is they'll establish board control. They'll have enough stuff on the board where there have been times, I'm sure, where we've all been playing games where our opponent has so many minions that if we play when we say it doesn't even matter, it's just going to die. That's board control, if we haven't explained it in a prior episode. And that's where all these mid-range and control decks really want to end up. It's where Jade Druid wants to end up. And the sooner you can get there, the better.
Yep. This even has a parallel in chess. And one of the most fundamental teaching of chess is to develop all of your pieces and do it fairly quickly. You never want to end a game with your pieces not developed. And I think that translates to Hearthstone. Like, you never want to be at the end of a game and be like, look at all these cards I didn't get to play because I wasn't being proactive. It works for Jade Druid too. Absolutely.
Yes.
So we're going to go ahead and tie it off there and move into the email section with this little thing right here. Right there.
We're gonna rock the foundations of the world, baby!
All right, I'm going to go ahead and take this first one. Jack emails us and says, hey guys, love the show. I've been listening since I started playing Hearthstone in May 2016. I could definitely use some advice. I'm going to attend my first Fireside Gathering in Orlando on the 19th. I just wanted to know what to expect. I know each one is probably a little different, but overall there might be a lot of similarities. Also, some deck list help. I don't have anywhere close to a complete collection, but I have all the cards to bring Aggro Shaman, Dragon Priest, Dragon Warrior, and Miracle Rogue. Deck list link below. And then he goes on to talk about some of the specifics that he has. He says, I also don't want to play Aggro Warrior and Shaman. I am just bringing Shaman to get it banned. I have the Warrior cards, but I don't like playing the aggro game. Thanks so much for the show and any advice you give. He wraps it up by saying, I also have only ever played Hearthstone from my iPhone 6 Plus, so I do not have access to everything a PC player does. So a couple of things. First, yes, you do. There is a couple of apps for iPhone that allow you to track your decks and track your games. So check those out. I don't have an iPhone, but I know they exist. And the second thing is we actually did an entire episode on what to do to get ready for a tournament. I believe it was episode number 29. So definitely go and check that out. But I know you've been playing a lot of competitive lately, even if it's casual competitive. But what would you give him as a primer? Given what he's given us, what would you give him as a bit of advice going in?
Well, it turns out I actually played in a Fireside last week, and I won this Leroy Jenkins mug, which I'm showing on screen. Yes.
Cool.
The last card I played was Leroy Jenkins. It seemed appropriate to pick that one. That tournament, it was only an 8-person tournament, and it was a funky format. We each picked 2 cards in the format to ban, which was super great because I banned Innervate because I don't want to deal with any of the Druid crap that Abba was talking about. And I also didn't have to worry about missing attacking with patches on turn 1 because they banned patches. Either way, the advice I'd give to you is pick your goal. Your goal should either be have fun or win the tournament. I wouldn't recommend trying to pick both goals. I think firesides are a great way to meet people, a great way to connect with people, and a great way to have fun. If you want to come, if you want to bring your own decks, by all means, feel free to do that. If you want to play niche decks, if you want to play Murloc Shaman with Call in the Finishers, feel free. Strongly recommended. With that being said, if you come to a tournament saying, I'm not playing Aggro Shaman, I'm not playing Pirate Warrior, you're setting yourself up. If you say, I want to win the tournament on my terms, that's a very, very difficult thing to do. So I want to make sure that the advice I give here is please feel free to be yourself, but recognize that winning the tournament and playing on your terms and having fun are definitely different goals. And the recommendation I'd give to a first-time Fireside attendee is definitely aim for having fun. I think that's the way I'd go. See how it feels, see what you like playing, but if you just go in there with a deck you don't want to play, or you go in there with the expectation that I'm going to win with this homebrew deck, neither of those are really good approaches to take, and it might inhibit the amount of fun you have. If you go in just with an open mind and not there for the competition just to have fun, that's going to be a way to make sure you set yourself up for having a good time, which is the ultimate measure of success. If you want to go hard, if you want to be a tournament player, by all means, bring the full tournament lineup, but that's going to include Patches the Pirate, that's going to include Fiery War Axe, and it'd be hard to say at this point, especially for someone that's never been to a Fireside before, bring a wonky off-the-wall lineup and you'll totally win. Does that make sense?
I think it does. And in fact, I once had a conversation with a guy who, in the course of his tournament advice, which is very different from yours, he said, at one point, the point of the game is to win. I said, no. The objective of the game is to win. The point of the game is to have fun. So that should be your number one, because if you're not having fun, what's the point?
Yeah.
But totally everything that Ben said, and also check with the Fireside organizer in Orlando, which I believe, Appa, you met those fine folks last year, did you not?
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. They're awesome.
Oh yeah.
Like the venue in Orlando is great. The organizers are awesome. You're gonna have an awesome time.
Yeah, shout out to Amy for all that, her help last year with that. But like, check with them and make sure that you know what format you're walking into, because it may not be like a straight up Conquest tournament. They may have something totally different and special planned. So check on that. So let's move on to the second one here. This is from Altenberg. Altenberg says, I love your show. I've been playing Hearthstone for about 2 years, mostly as a free-to-play player, but my obsession is getting more intense. I've been dropping money on the game recently to fill out my missing legendary cards and came across your podcast a few months ago. Thanks for the great tournament coverage for more casual players like me that might get interested in getting into the competitive side of the game. Do you have any advice for someone who's never done any real competitive Hearthstone before? This is a theme today. Where do you start? What's the process of getting into a tournament, and what's the etiquette involved? As someone whose highest achieved ladder rank is only 5, I realize I need to keep working to fine-tune my decks in gameplay. So, yes, same thing that we said just one email ago. Check out episode 29. I linked it in the show notes for you. It is we did a nice segment on exactly how to get into competitive Hearthstone. So check that out.
It answers those questions like point by point on that podcast.
Yeah, it really does. So he does submit to us a shaman deck that he wanted us to look over. He took a Jade shaman and he added the water package, and he says he's got a just better than 50% win percentage, but he loses to Pirate Warrior and some other stuff. So Appa, you're our resident shaman wizard. Tell us, look at his list. What do you think is good? What's bad? What's missing? You should have done the homework.
It's kind of weird that there's only one everyfin. Well, I guess it's not really, because it's just got the Finja 5 plus the everyfin, just for the memes, the spicy memes. I don't know. I mean, like, if you have, like, you've been a rank 5 player before, so, like, you know how to play Hearthstone, so check. So you know what you're doing in general, and you have a little bit better than a 50% win rate, but you're just losing to Pirate Warrior. Me and Cinder talked about this the other day. Yeah. That's the benchmark you want to be at with the deck. That's good. Write it off. Put it on your taxes. Write it to Legend. You're good.
Actually, yeah. Well, you know what, though? You know what I see that's missing from this that's probably losing him that matchup is Feral Spirits.
Yeah. Well, and the top end of this deck, double Bloodlust, double Jade Chieftain, and an Everyfin is awesome. I wouldn't be surprised if after the mulligan there are a lot of hands where you just don't do anything for the first 3 turns. I would think Feral Spirits would be great. Thing from Below would be great in this deck. And trimming the top end a little bit, I think, might be the way to go just to be more competitive in the early game.
Okay, so now that we're getting into this more seriously. So the things I see with the deck that I would cut initially, or I would tinker with initially, would be the Everyfin, because you only have the 5 Murlocs. Like, it's good on a board, just in general, because it just permanently buffs them. And then I would cut a Bloodlust, because 2 Bloodlust gets super awkward. Like, real awkward in your mulligan. Like, if you ever draw it, and you're not planning on killing them, it feels real bad. I'd cut the Thalnos. Like, it's good with Portal, but Spirit Claws isn't a card anymore. That's mainly the reason why you ran it.
Yeah.
Plus, you're trying to be aggressive, and Thalnos is an inherently aggressive card. So I'd cut those 1, 2, 3 cards. Yeah, just those 3 cards, and I'd probably add in... Do you have Totem Golem? Yeah, you do have Totem Golem. Probably at least a Feral Spirits. You can add 2.
Yeah.
You can add 2, probably. Like, 2 of those, and then whatever else is the third card.
Like two Feral Spirits and a Thing from Below, possibly both Things from Below would be a really good start for him, honestly.
Yeah, we also aren't playing Azure Drake.
Yeah.
We don't really need to. I mean, so okay, I have an approach towards this. So we can cut Thalnos, a Bloodlust, and an Everyfin. We add in both Thing from Belows and a Feral Spirit. Reason being is that, like, you lose to Pirate Warrior and both Feral Spirits, and you're gonna be like, "Gotcha, Pirate Warrior, you auto lost." But it's still like a decent card in the curve, like especially with Tunnel Trog and just in the Shaman curve in general. And Thing from Below is better as a 2 of than a 1 of, because you want to draw it.
I can see that.
Yeah.
And the 3 spot is already occupied in this deck. So I could see cutting those 3 cards and adding 2 Thing from Belows and then a Feral Spirits, and then trying that out for a while and seeing how it goes.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good starting point. So yeah, let us, Altenberg, let us know how Oppa suggestions work for you. I want to see that work out for you and get you back up to 5 and maybe into Legend. That would be awesome.
Hopefully I didn't butcher your deck.
Yeah.
Let's hope not. Play a few games in casual first.
Yeah, and please don't ever say that you've only ever hit rank 5. Rank 5 is hard. Rank 5 is the top 2% of players. Please don't ever say I've only hit rank 5. Be proud of that. Rank 5 is really difficult.
Yeah, here's a side story for you. When I was younger and more limber, I was a student of the martial arts, and I had ended up taking a break. And one of the tenets of the art that I studied was, like, when you know everything, you start over, right? Like, so when I took a break and I came back to it, I started back at, like, the lowest belt, and my instructor's like, no, go get your advanced belt. And I was like, yeah, but I've been out of practice for a long time. He said, no, you earned it, so you wear it. So don't be ashamed of anything you've earned in your life. Rank 5 is a thing. It took work and it took practice. So rank 5 is awesome. Don't be ashamed that it's dad legend or whatever. It still takes commitment.
Like, if you're not competing in the Hearthstone Championship Tour, the only thing that Legend does is give you a card back, an ugly card back.
Yep,
that you shouldn't use because it's gross. So, like,
and people difference between
rank 5 and Legend at that point is only end of season rewards. So, like, you're good, dude. You're almost there.
Not even. Like, the rank 5 and the Legend rewards are basically the same.
It's just like 25 dust different.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's not even a card. So if you would like to email us and get some advice on your life or your decks in general, write us to the email address coinconcede@gmail.com, and we may read your letter on the show and give you some free advice. So, Hat, take us out, please. Give us the thanks.
I would love to do that. Thanks to all of you for being here. But thanks to Stefan L. for letting us use his cover. You should check him out on his channel, linked on our show notes. you can check our blog post at coinconcede.com along with our show notes. There are lots of cool links in there, various comments. Look for Appa's Rage on the side. Follow us on Twitter at coinconcede. And like and share our Facebook page at facebook.com/coinconcede. Hang out in our Discord with ourselves and other cool folks at discord.coinconcede.com. And please, $2 means merchandising. So I'm just planting the seed right now. If you have a couple bucks,
$2 more.
If you have a couple bucks and you want a Coin Concede shirt, I think that would be a reasonable exchange. Even though I'm biased, I think that'd be a good way to spend that $2.
Oh man! By the way, I ordered out for a prototype of the logo T-shirt. It should be here later this week.
He's gonna be rocking that at DreamHack Awesome.
It looks awesome.
Oh boy!
You guys, I can't wait to show it off. It's so cool. But let's go ahead and do shout-outs. Appa, you got any shout-outs this week?
Shout out to Cinder for holding down the anchor.
Just stop it with that.
You knew that was coming.
I mean, it's justified this week, right? Like,
all right, yeah, sure.
Because Kenny's not here. And then another shout out to Twitch.tv for streaming the Power Rangers series.
Oh yeah.
That I've been going back and realizing how absolutely terrible it was. I watched a couple episodes and I was like, oh no! Like in the intro, whatever the big dude's name in the tube is, he literally says, "Get me some teenagers with attitude."
Zordon.
Oh no.
Zordon.
Verbatim.
That's awkward.
It's amazing. It's so bad.
We're not going to get into this on the air, but I have feelings that I'd like to discuss with you about this conversation.
No, we're not talking about Power Rangers. But if you'd like to talk to us about a shout out, I'm all ears.
I'd like to shout out Tommy the Green Ranger, but beyond him, I'd like to shout out a couple people. The Angry Chicken for 200 episodes. Very impressive.
Man.
Right? How
so
cool is
good.
that? Yeah, they are the podcast gold standard in this community, and if you don't listen to the Angry Chicken, you should listen to us first, but then listen to them second. They're really, really great. Willie Dills is actually one of the inspirations why I got into this whole thing, and that whole squad over there they are consummate professionals. They got Yang Wu on there for the 200th episodes. They definitely deserve your time.
I wouldn't even be mad if you listened to them first and us second. They're that good.
Let's not compromise.
Okay.
But they're really good.
And I guess, yeah. And I suppose I also have a shout out. I actually want to shout out Danny Pudi, the actor from, you may recognize him from Community.
Yeah.
He's the actor who took on the role of like the kooky explorer in the Ungoro video journals.
Oh, that's who that was?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I know. I recognize.
Yes, that is totally who that
somewhere.
was. Yeah, I know, right? He's great, and those little it was a little corny, but they're adorable.
It's a Hearthstone live action promotion.
I know.
Yeah. It's gonna be corny.
I'm super excited to see the rest of those, but I can't really watch them all the way to the end because they're going to show a card at the end, and I can't look. So I just have to watch it and end it before the very end. So, Hat, where can people find you after the show?
Well, they can find me on Twitter at RidiculousHat. You can find me on Twitch tomorrow night, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific, twitch.tv/RidiculousHat. And you will probably find me on the ladder after the show. Typically, we jam some games afterwards because we've been talking about Hearthstone. We're just revved up. We want to play.
True. Appa, where can people find you?
On Twitter at CycloneAppa, on Twitch at twitch.tv/AppaHS, or I've been super active in Discord lately, fussing about Hearthstone. So if you come join our Discord, you get to witness me fuss a lot.
Yes.
It's really funny because I get real heated for like 3 minutes, and then after that I cool down. We laugh about it.
It's pretty great.
True facts. If you want to find Kenny, he's on a baseball diamond somewhere clapping and cheering for his little boy. But you can also follow him on Twitter at KCCO_gamer. And you can follow him on Twitch, twitch.tv/KCCOgamer. And if you want his battle tag, you can message him on Twitter or Discord, and he will probably give it to you because he's a cool guy like that. And Cora, you can find casting Hearthstone everywhere. She just finished up the Tespa Collegiate series, and she's doing even more work. She'll be at DreamHack Austin, and probably some other gigs that we can't mention on the air for legal reasons. So you can follow her on Twitter follow her on Twitter at SongbirdHS with an underscore, and follow her on Twitch, twitch.tv/SageCora. And for me, if you really want to follow me, I guess you can. Twitter, at Cinder Ascendant, and Twitch is the same. Kenny's not here. That means I get to send it out my way. Ishne alo pora. And if you see us on ladder, coin concede.
Coin concede.
Coin concede.
You have bested.
I choose death.
You win this one.
I concede.
You win this time. Well fought. I concede. You win this one, friend. The victory is yours.
I give up.